ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all are doing amazing today. So, let's talk about something that's real, something that so many girls go through, and that is, why do men come back after no contact? Sounds familiar, right? Let's get into it with some clarity and confidence, just the way we deserve to live our lives. When you suddenly stop reaching out, stop texting, stop calling, that silence can be louder than any argument or goodbye. In relationships, especially when things have been emotionally intense, people often take each other for granted. They assume that the other person will always be there, replying instantly, giving them attention, showing up, caring without conditions. But when that pattern is broken, when you go completely silent, it creates a void, and that void, it's powerful. Men, like anyone else, notice when energy shifts. At first, they might not say anything. They might even pretend not to care, but slowly they start to notice the stillness. The morning messages are gone, the emotional check-ins vanish. Your presence, the one that used to feel so regular, is now missing. And that absence begins to whisper in their mind. At first, it's confusing to them. They think you're just upset. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe you're trying to prove a point. But as time passes and you remain quiet, a different kind of curiosity starts to rise. Not just about where you are or what you're doing, but why you've stopped caring. That silence hits a man's ego, but more than that, it touches his emotions. He starts wondering, was I replaceable? Has she moved on? Did she stop loving me? And that's where the realization begins. When someone becomes used to your warmth, your loyalty, and your consistency, your absence feels like winter. The space you once filled can't be replaced easily, especially if you gave genuinely, especially if you were real. Suddenly, memories start to replay, not just the happy ones, but also the way you handled difficult situations with grace. The way you loved, even when it was hard. The way you stayed, even when you had reasons to walk away. That kind of energy isn't common, and once it's gone, it lingers in the mind of the one who lost it. So when a man comes back after no contact, it's often because your absence reminded him of your value. But that doesn't always mean he's changed. It just means he finally noticed what he had, after it was no longer there. When someone has been a part of your everyday life, your voice, your texts, your care, even the way you listen, it becomes a source of comfort they may not even fully appreciate while it's happening. It's not always the big things people miss first. It's the little things, the way you reminded them to take care of themselves, the way you laughed at their jokes, or the way you gave them space to be vulnerable without judgment. These small, everyday moments become emotional safety nets. And when you go silent, that net disappears. Men often associate comfort with consistency. When they know they can rely on your emotional presence, they begin to lean on it, sometimes without even realizing. You were the person who made them feel understood when the world didn't. You brought them peace when they were dealing with chaos. You celebrated their wins, encouraged their goals, and sat through their silences without demanding explanations. That's a rare kind of emotional space, and once it's gone, the absence becomes heavy. At first, they may enjoy the freedom. They might think they've escaped the responsibility of communicating, explaining, or being emotionally present. But over time, that freedom starts to feel empty, because it wasn't just about space, it was about connection, and you gave them that connection with genuine love, patience, and effort. What replaces your presence can't compete. Other people might be fun, casual, or exciting, but they won't feel like home. They won't understand their silences or see through their moods the way you did. They won't offer the same emotional depth. And that's when it hits them. You weren't just someone they talked to. You were their comfort zone, their peace. This kind of comfort isn't easy to replace because it's not based on convenience or attraction. It's emotional, and emotional comfort is intimate. Once you stop being that source of calm, they start to crave it. They miss the feeling of being emotionally held, even if they couldn't admit it while you were still there. So when they return, it's often because the world outside your presence felt colder, harsher, less safe. But remember, missing comfort is not the same as being ready to value it. Don't confuse nostalgia for growth. Let them earn back what they once had so effortlessly. In many situations, especially when a relationship hits a rough patch, ego becomes louder than emotion. Men, particularly those who struggle with vulnerability, often let their ego take the lead. They might walk away not because they don't care, but because they don't want to appear weak. Admitting feelings, owning up to mistakes, or expressing regret can feel like losing control. So instead of talking it out or fighting for the connection, they choose silence. They expect you to reach out first to apologize, even when it wasn't your fault. That's ego speaking. Ego says, I don't need her. Ego says, if she really cared, she'll come back. Ego says, let's see who breaks first. But here's the twist. Emotions don't just go away. They sit quietly underneath that ego waiting. At first, ego feels strong. It feels like protection. But with time it starts to wear thin. The pride that felt like power becomes a barrier to happiness. And slowly, emotions begin to rise. Regret, longing, sadness, and the realization of what they've lost. They start thinking about the good moments, the laughter, the warmth, the way you made them feel seen. They replay conversations in their head. They remember your patience, your energy, your effort, and those memories don't match the narrative their ego built. That's when the inner conflict begins. It becomes a quiet war inside them. Ego says, don't message her. She's moved on. Emotions say, what if she hasn't? What if she's hurting too? Ego says, you don't need her. Emotions whisper, but you miss her. This push and pull can last for weeks, even months, but usually emotions win, because emotions are real, raw, and human. And when they do come back, it's often because those emotions finally spoke louder than their pride. But just because someone's emotions won doesn't mean their ego disappeared. It's up to you to observe if they've truly changed, or if they're just reacting to temporary discomfort. Growth happens when someone acknowledges how their ego hurt the relationship and actively chooses to lead with emotional maturity instead. So when he returns, don't just listen to what he says, watch what he does. Because real love requires vulnerability, and if he's still hiding behind pride, he's not ready to hold your heart. When you step back from someone who took you for granted, something powerful begins to happen. You start to level up. Not out of spite, not to make them jealous, but because you finally have the space to focus on you. Without the emotional weight of constantly giving, explaining, fixing, or chasing, your energy returns to its rightful place within yourself. And that shift is magnetic. At first it might hurt. Silence feels heavy. Letting go of someone you cared about feels unnatural. But slowly you begin to rediscover who you are outside of the relationship. You pick up forgotten passions. You invest in your health, your goals, your peace. You stop waiting for a text to validate your worth, and instead, you start showing up for yourself in ways no one else ever did. That glow, it's not just physical, it's confidence, it's peace, it's knowing you don't need someone to complete you because you are already whole. Meanwhile, the person who left or distanced themselves starts to notice something. The version of you they knew, the one who was always available, always accommodating, always giving more than they received, is gone. In her place is someone who's thriving, evolving, and unbothered. And that shift, it's both attractive and intimidating. They might scroll through your posts and see a light in you that wasn't there before. They'll notice how you carry yourself differently, more sure, more grounded, more radiant. And while they were hoping you'd be stuck, they're now the ones wondering if they still have a place in your world. This is where the level up becomes undeniable, because you no longer operate from a place of needing someone to love you. You've learned to love yourself better, and once you've experienced that kind of self-respect, it becomes very hard to accept anything less. So yes, he may come back, drawn by your transformation, curious about your journey. But now the question is no longer *, Will he love me right this time? Asterisk it's asterisk. Does he even deserve the woman I've become? Asterisk leveling up isn't about revenge or attention. It's about rising into the version of yourself that was always meant to exist. One that's powerful, centered, and no longer waiting for someone else to see her worth. She knows it now, and that changes everything. So yes, they may return, but that doesn't mean you should open the door. You're the prize, not an option, not a maybe. Know your worth and never shrink to fit anyone's comfort zone.